I was the only exception. You didn't have any social skills at all. You'd never worked with anybody in your life to help them. So you got thrown onto the psychiatric wards at Harvard, and it was a disaster. All these young people who were uptight and competitive but had straight A's. Whereas I'd gotten in basically to Harvard because of this record I had of developing a volunteer program and writing about it as a very young person. So it was just obvious from the beginning to me, because I had these untrained eyes, that what people needed was not intoxicating substances. And I think probably, just skipping quickly ahead, probably the most important event after that was when I got asked to be, after I wrote Toxic Psychiatry about the harms of the drugs, I got asked to be the scientific investigator for way over 100 cases regarding Prozac and its maker, Eli Lilly, where Prozac had caused violence and suicide and other disasters. That's when I began to, as the chief investigator appointed for all the cases, regardless of different lawyers, where the judge said, no, we'll have just one person doing all this work and not do a lot of duplicative work. It was in that role that I really developed my understanding of how the entire drug approval process was skewed toward the drug companies, and how approval of a drug did not mean it was effective. It did not mean it was safe. It just meant that it got through some very jerry-rigged trials that lasted 3, 4, 5, and 6 weeks. It was just astounding to me. I had no idea that trials only lasted 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. I had no idea how jerry-rigged they were. I had no idea that it was almost a farce. It was smoke and mirrors to get the drugs approved.
Well, I think it's important for our listening audience to know, in the United States, if you want to get a drug approval, the pharmaceutical company has various physician groups around the country that they give their proposed drug to. And you hear advertised on the radio, you want to try a new treatment for, diabetes, a new treatment for heart disease, come call us and it's free and all the care is free. So they have different groups. They have one drug they want to come out with and get approval of the FDA, and they may send it to 10 doctors. 8 doctors may write back and say, this drug is killing people. The doctors have signed an agreement with the pharmaceutical companies they can't tell a soul. All the pharmaceutical companies have to do is show that they have 2 studies that show that the drug is more effective, for whatever reason they want to give it, more effective than a placebo. It just has to be slightly more effective. If it's more effective than a placebo, then it can be approved. Those are drug approval committees. They're not investigation committees. They are set up by the FDA to approve drugs, because the FDA makes money off all the drugs that are sold in the United States. About 30% of the FDA's income is paid by the pharmaceutical companies, based on a bill passed in 1992 called PDUFA, Prescription Drug User Fee, which the Big Pharma agreed with FDA. If you'll approve our drugs quickly, we'll give you part of the profits. They cut a deal. So the FDA basically is in the pocket of Big Pharma, and the people that sit on their committees, most of them have ties to Big Pharma. And it's all rigged. It's a rigged system. Now, the FDA doesn't require them to turn in any studies that are negative. It's different in England. So anyway, that's the story, and that's what he talks about, the fraudulent way and the Jimmy Rig way this thing is rigged towards the drug companies.
Stephen, let me clarify a little bit. I mean, you're right, but let me clarify it a little bit. The drug companies, they might do 5, 6, or 8 studies, and they only need 2, which was your point. Excuse me. They only need 2 to get approval. They do have to turn in all of them, and they use the others for the adverse effect studies, but it just takes 2 to pass. And if you can't jerry-rig with your own paid doctors 2 studies to show a minimal effect, you don't know what you're doing.
Well, that's exactly right. What is it? They're liars, darn liars, and statisticians. And they can make them talk however they want to talk. We're going to be back with Dr. Peter Breggin after this break. This is Dr. Hotze, and this is Wellness Revolution.
Please stay tuned.
Now back to the Wellness Revolution. Got a question for the doc? Call him at 713-212-5950. No copay required.
Welcome back to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. This is Stacey Banfield with Dr. Stephen Hotze. Now, if you are sick and tired of being sick and tired, then know there is a natural way to address your health issues. Please call one of our friendly wellness consultants at 281-698-8698. That's 281-698-8698. Dr. Hotze.
Thank you so very much, Stacey. And thank each one of you for joining us here today on Wellness Revolution. We are doing a wellness revolution. I'm leading it with other doctors around the country, like Dr. Peter Breggin, who's our guest. We are saying it's time for a paradigm change and a shift in America. We need to do a 180. You need to do a 180. American medicine, conventional medicine, needs to do a 180. You need to take charge of your health. We've got to get back to natural approaches to health. The pharmaceutical companies, the insurance companies, the hospitals control the doctors. Most doctors now are hospital employees. Guess what the hospital wants them to do? Admit patients, run procedures, run up the bills. The insurance companies want them to run up the bills so they can charge higher premiums. They can make more money. It's just one vicious cycle after another. And we call it the medical industrial complex.
Well, you actually visited with a woman who got caught in that this morning. Remember, she was on birth control pills for years and years and years, and no one ever thought to say, hey,
you don't need them.
You don't need them.
And she was having terrible problems, headaches, migraines, gained weight. He threw her thyroid out. It was horrible. Then when she got off of them, she tried to get pregnant, couldn't get pregnant after being on them for 20 years. Surprise, surprise, after poisoning the body. But anyway, Dr. Breggin is our guest. Dr. Peter Breggin is from Ithaca, New York, and he is a psychiatrist who takes natural approaches to health. In fact, he is an ardent opponent, an outspoken opponent, probably one of the leading, if not the leading, opponent to the use of these psychotropic psychiatric medications that cause people to go mad. You think you're mad before you took them? My gosh, they pass these things out like candy to everybody. I don't care if you've got menstrual cramps, you got migraine headaches, you feel, you don't meet people well. I don't care what your problem is, stomach disorder, they're going to put you on antidepressants. That's what they do. And 30% of the women, 30% of the women over the age of 40 have been prescribed or did take antidepressants. That's 1 out of 3. You tell me 1 out of the 3 women in America are crazy and they need antidepressants? No, they don't. Their hormones are declining. They need hormonal balance. They need a good eating program. They need to get on vitamins and minerals. They need to exercise. All these things can restore health. And, Doc, contrary to what you do in your counseling, we just love our guests and our patients and our members of our organization. We don't counsel them at all. We just love on them, and we get their hormones balanced, and guess what? They get well. We even help them without counseling. So when you get the body back in order, it does an amazing thing. But the last thing you want to do is if you have problems with fatigue, weight gain, you can't think clearly, you got brain fog, you can't sleep, you have mood swings, you got a regular menstrual cycle, you got joint muscle aches and pains, you got stomach disorders, your hair's falling out, you're puffy, you're bloated, you got no libido. You don't need an antidepressant for crying. Nobody is sick. Nobody feels that way because they have low levels of antidepressants or anti-anxiety drugs or sleep medication. Something's going on in your body, and you want to replenish what you're missing. Now, Dr. Breggin, tell us about these psychiatric drugs, the SSRI antidepressants, which are common. People commonly know the lead drug was Prozac, and that came out in 1987. And then it had a bunch of knockoffs to it, Paxil and Levoxil, and you name them. They're the whole smear of those drugs. Then they came out with Effexor, which is similar but a little bit different. But it's a neurotransmitter uptake inhibitor. Tell us about these drugs and the effect that these drugs have on people, and tell us about spellbinding and what it does to people that take these drugs.
And I want to not only talk about the Prozac, Paxil, Celexa, Zoloft, Wellbutrin, Effexor, all of these newer antidepressants and some older ones, but I want to do something that I haven't talked about much and will be new to your audience, which is the pushing of also the antipsychotic drugs,
Yes. Oh, yeah.
disguising them as antidepressants. So that nowadays people are often taking a drug like, the new would be Rexulti or Latuda, Invega, Risperdal, Safra, Seroquel, Zyprexa, Geodone, Finap. People are taking these drugs thinking they're antidepressants because that's what their doctors are saying, but they're really old-fashioned antipsychotic drugs. And all of these drugs do one thing. I'm just going to talk about one thing right now, and that is they produce something called akathisia. So this is both the drugs, both these antipsychotic drugs that are being masqueraded as sleeping pills and antidepressants and given to children for behavioral control, and all of the antidepressants. They produce this akathisia, which is an inner subjective feeling of anxiety and agitation and irritability and nervousness that makes you want to move about. It's usually accompanied by a kind of jitteriness, but not always accompanied by the jitteriness. It's basically a subjective feeling, and people have no idea what's overcoming them. They think it's their anxiety, their tensions, their insomnia, when it's a drug effect, and it actually drives people into suicidal feelings, irritable, aggressive, and violent feelings. So, and people commit suicide and homicide on these drugs, and they just get worse and worse and worse without knowing what's happening. So here we have the two largest, most highly promoted classes of drugs because they're so remunerative. They make so much money for the drug companies, and we have tens of millions of people taking them, and they don't know that they can get worse and worse and have no idea what is happening to them. So you literally, folks, when you take these drugs, you're risking a very high risk, often in the 20, 30, 40% group. I'm talking about huge numbers of getting this one disorder from the drug, this akathisia, which you will not recognize. You'll just be more tense and nervous and anxious. So you got to be aware of these drugs. You can't stop them on a dime. I've written a whole book about that called Psychiatric Drug Withdrawal. The first half is about these things like akathisia. The second half is about how to come off them, because it's also dangerous to come off these drugs. You can get akathisia coming off them, starting them, getting an increased dose. Any kind of change can produce this very sudden, acute effect that you won't recognize. Even your first dose, and you'll just think you're getting worse and you need more of the drug. And even the research shows that the most common reflex of a physician when a patient describes these feelings is to increase the dose, not to decrease it. So if you get this one thing across and understand this one thing, you could be saving your life or the lives of loved ones, or if you're a prescriber, you could be saving hundreds of lives by knowing this.
We'll be back with Dr. Peter Breggin.
Yes, that's very good advice, Dr. Breggin. If you want to get healthy and well, if any of this resonates with you, then please give us a call at 281-698-8698 or go to getyourlifeback.com. That's getyourlifeback.com. Please stay tuned.
Now back to the Wellness Revolution. Here's your host, Dr. Stephen Hotze.
Here at Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution, we are on a mission to help you achieve health and wellness naturally. If you would like more information on finally becoming healthy and well, then please call one of our wellness consultants at 281-698-8698. That's 281-698-8698.
We're visiting with Dr. Peter Breggin from Ithaca, New York. He's a psychiatrist who takes natural approaches to health and has been a strong opponent for decades, going back into the 1960s and 70s, against the use of psychiatric and psychotropic drugs to try to fix people who have problems that are not caused by low levels of antidepressants. Nobody's sick because they have a low level of antidepressant. He discusses the spellbinding effects of psychiatric drugs in his book, Medication Madness, which I'd highly recommend you buying. And that book can be, where can they purchase that book, Dr. Breggin?
Oh, you can get it very easily from
Amazon?
From Amazon.
Go
sure.
to Amazon and look at his books. You got kids that are on Ritalin. Read his books about talking back to Ritalin. He's got a ton of books on psychiatric drugs and the dangers of them. You need to understand this. He mentioned to you